Hello and welcome to Real Menopause Talk. My guest today is Nicola Shubrook. Nicola and I knew each other in our 20s and actually lived around the corner from each other. We were both part of a wider, quite tight social group. Life moves you in different directions, and it wasn't until this episode, really, when we reconnected as we find ourselves in the women's health and menopause space. I caught up with another friend from the same friend group recently, and we both agreed on the importance of connection and how good it can be to rekindle friendships. We've talked a bit on the pod here about cleaning what is no longer serving you in life, but equally important is rediscovering what and who is truly important to you. In this episode, Nicola and I talk nutrition, optimizing hormones, cleaning out excess hormones, bowel movements, collagen, stress, and island life. Nicola, lovely to see you. I will explain to everybody in the preamble how we met. And
yes,
so actually know each other. But lovely to see you. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. Really well. Very excited to be here. I say, after knowing you for so long, and then us not speaking just because life stuff. So to come on and chat to you today is fantastic.
And we find ourselves in the lovely menopause, perimenopause bubble and health and well-being and women's health, which is pretty exciting in itself as well. For the purposes of people who don't know you, would you like to start with telling everybody a little bit about yourself?
Of course. So I am Nicola Shubrook. I'm a registered nutritionist. I'm a functional medicine practitioner. I'm actually also a clinical hypnotherapist. And I run an online nutrition and functional medicine clinic called Herbal Wellness. So I've been doing that for 7 or 8 years now. I've been qualified for 12. So I had a busy career in media before that, which I loved. But that was part of the reason that led me to retrain, because my own health took its turn. And it was through that I found the passion for nutrition, but also in particular kind of mental health. And by that, I mean not just anxiety and depression, just all of the factors that feature around how our brains work, are what I call our food stories, which we'll probably tap into. Just understanding, memory and concentration and brain fog, all those things that come up at this life stage. I just love, and the connection with the gut, that gut-brain connection. So yeah, I absolutely love working in this space now and couldn't think about going back to do anything else. As for me personally, I am currently sitting in Cyprus. This is where has been my home for the last 15 months, which has been amazing. So I used to live in the UK. Most of my clients are in the UK, but Europe as well. And the great thing about running an online business is I can do it from anywhere, which was part of the reason we moved, because we took advantage of kind of, that was it. What am I? Digital nomad, I think, is what I'm technically classed as. So I live out here. My parents also, they retired out here 8 years ago, which is just lovely. And I just love the work-life balance and doing the things that are important to keep me well, like my morning walks, which have always been a massive part of what I do, and just fresh produce and more sunshine than the UK, those kind of things. So yeah.
It's making me very envious indeed on a rather wet, damp, grey morning. There we go. Nicola, where are you in terms of perimenopause at the moment?
So I am perimenopause. I'm 48, and I would say I started to notice symptoms about 3 years ago. Just a slight change in my menstrual cycle was the first clue for me. And then just a few mood elements, kind of naturally doing the work I do. I've done a lot of work on my hormones over the years, so I don't struggle with PMT or any of that. But then when I started to notice things like, I wouldn't even call it irritability. It's like a flash anger. It can just out of nowhere, one tiny thing can make you go, rah, which is so out of nature for me. So that's when I started to go, okay, something's going on. But generally, that I have got under control just, again, through diet and lifestyle. And for me, I touch wood, I'm breezing through this bit at the minute. Other than the change in cycles, I'm coping well with it and not kind of, I know the thing with menopause, and it's great, we've got podcasts like this that highlight kind of menopause and the impact it can have on women. But I think I'm also on the other side going, it doesn't have to be like this either. It doesn't have to be this horrific journey that some women are seem to be going through.
What was the work then that you've done previously on your hormones that has meant that you're in a more solid position?
So for years, I was put on the pill so the oral contraceptive pill when I was 14, and that was for my skin. So I had sort of really bad, it wasn't acne on my face, but I kind of would get these like pimples, I guess, all across my chest and back. And back in the day, they would go to a doctor, was like, have some medicine, go on the pill. And so then I ended up staying on it because then it obviously was beneficial from a contraceptive side. And I didn't come off the pill until I was 32. I actually changed it for the copper coil at the time. Which for me has been a godsend. It's just been super easy. But at the time, my PMT was dreadful. And I also, that's through my own nutrition journey as well, I noticed as well, actually, I had intolerances. I have quite a severe dairy intolerance. And I say severe in that I think when most people think about food intolerances, they go, oh, it's bloating or digestive issues. For me, it's moods. Dairy made me depressed. I think back to my university days, my poor housemates that I lived with and, my early 20s. Because, I was eating cheese was something you ate as a student, cheese on toast, that kind of thing. But I noticed I would get depressed. I struggled in my late teens and early 20s with really low moods. So for me, it was kind of like working out, right, what is the impact food is having on my health, but also in terms of my hormones, because the two were clashing. For some of us, dairy and hormones just can be a bit pro-inflammatory. And so coming off the pill, I suddenly was like, I was getting all these sore boobs and, my cycle was heavy and hives. So I struggled on and off with urticaria, chronic hives. And I was thinking, right, cortisol, stress hormones. So when I took hormones, sometimes I'm not just talking about sex hormones, it's kind of the whole picture. So I just improved. I started eating better. I started doing a lot of work on my gut. I do a lot of liver support mainly through diet. And I use a lot of powdered supplements. So rather than just always taking a pill, I use a lot of like freeze-dried powders like collagens and green powders and things, easy things. I'm all about ease. We're all busy. How can we just make our health better through day-to-day practices? And I started to do a lot of work on the stress side. Meditation became a thing. My walking became a huge thing for me. I do a lot of journaling and things like that. So it was kind of an all-rounded approach rather than just, I took this magic pill and that kind of fixed it, because I just started paying attention to my body, starting to notice, right, what are the signs? Why am I experiencing this? Which is why I think now, for me in perimenopause, I've had very subtle shifts, but I've been able to notice them. And I'm not getting kind of big, dramatic kind of changes at the moment. And hopefully not, but who knows?
It's so interesting that you say that cheese actually made you depressed, because it's another layer of awareness that actually could be extremely beneficial. How did you identify specifically that it was dairy that made you depressed?
It actually started off, I actually went to a kinesiologist back in my early 20s. And she said to me, I don't think dairy suits you. At the time, I think I was in that phase where I was like, I was just desperate to feel better. I just knew I wasn't feeling great. And I was like, all right, I'll give it a go. And then it, mentioned it to my mum and she's like, oh, I'm not actually that great with dairy. And mentioned it to my sister. Yeah, I don't do good on dairy. And suddenly started going, right, okay, hang on. But I probably wasn't really strict with it, like going out for dinner or going to someone's house. And also, if I'm thinking like, this was, 22. So this is like 26 years ago. You didn't have, going into a coffee shop and asking for a coconut latte or an oat latte. They just didn't exist, really. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You could get some really awful soya milks, but that was about it. And then it probably wasn't, until I went off to study nutrition, that I started to kind of really make those connections, because also the fascinating part for me was that my journey into nutrition was because I started having panic attacks in my late 20s. And, whilst I was doing all the therapeutic work, just the fact that actually food and stress was probably exacerbating my symptoms. And then I started to understand that a lot of our brain chemicals are made in our gut. So things like serotonin, which is our happy hormone, 95% of it is made in the gut because we actually need it for our bowel movements and motility. And I just started to join the dots and think, oh, hang on, if I'm giving myself this food that actually doesn't suit me. Every time you're consuming a food that actually doesn't suit you, your body is going to react to it. It can't digest it. So it ends up down-regulating certain pathways and possibly up-regulating the pathways we don't want up-regulated, really. So yeah, it was kind of like going, right, getting to the point going, I need to get the panic to stop. Let's start really being good with my diet. I was then eventually went off to study in it. And Yeah, the best way, and I think that's it. I've seen clients over and over again go off and spend hundreds of pounds or rock up in my sessions and go, I've just gone off and bought all these tests and it says I'm intolerant to like 25 different foods. It's not always the food that's the issue. Sometimes it is the gut. I often see a lot of people just going, well, maybe it is the food. I'm like, then just take it out of your diet for 21 days. That's it. Just take out that one food and see how you feel, whether you're trying to improve your hormones, whether you're trying to improve digestion, whether you think, do you know what, I think there might be a food I feel low because of it. Just think about, even keep a food diary and think, right, what is the common factor? And just take out that one food and just see if it makes a difference. At the end of 21 days, put it back in and you'll soon know if some of those symptoms come back, because it can be like, instant.
You mentioned collagen earlier, which is actually something that has come up as a recurrent question a lot lately. What does it really do? And is it worth it?
So I think it's important to understand, products, when we talk about collagen, we're talking about the products you can buy, in powders and supplements and liquids. There are lots of different types of collagen. Our body actually has 5 different types of collagen, I think it is. So you'll see products that advertise collagen for your skin, and it might be a marine-based collagen, so fish or marine-based. For me, the research isn't always there on those kind of products in terms of, oh yeah, if I just drink this marine collagen, take this supplement, I won't get as wrinkly as quickly, or whatever it might be. I use a bovine collagen, so that is animal-based. That is basically, when I was saying about the 5 different types of collagen, it's type 1. So that is kind of the fundamental structures of our joints, our ligaments, our gut needs collagen. Every sort of fiber we have in the body, muscle, is collagen based. And so I use a bovine collagen because for me, that's kind of going in almost at the top layer. And it's a powder that I literally just stir into a yogurt or a cup of tea or something like that. And for me, I have noticed difference in both digestion and also skin as well. I just think it works at a base level because collagen naturally declines as we age. And for most of us, if we think about some of the factors that most of us struggle with, stress is one that's going to come up all the time. We're all busy. We're all, as women, wearing loads of different hats, juggling all these things, often neglecting our health in the background whilst we, multitask. Stress is it's what we call it. I wouldn't say it's a toxin, but it creates what we call free radicals. It creates toxins in the body. And then the thing you need to mop up those free radicals is antioxidants, often vitamin C. Again, vitamin C is a really important part of collagen formation. For me, it's about using these products in conjunction. You don't just go, oh, I'm going to keep going and eating fried food every day, but I'm taking my collagen. It's about having it as part of lots of fruit and veg in the diet, because no vitamin, no mineral, no nutrient works on its own. It never has done. So I think it's important to say, these products do work, but I think you've got to take it in context as part of your whole diet as well, and not just expect them to fix things. But I wouldn't go and buy necessarily a marine collagen or one that kind of promises the earth. I'd stick with my bovine collagen because I think that works, as say, at that base level, which I find a lot more effective.
It seems that an awful lot is grounded in the gut. Mental health, physical health, the whole gamut. It all comes from having a good gut microbiome and making sure that your digestion works really well. Where would you begin with that? If you have a perimenopausal woman who comes to you who's struggling with a range of symptoms, how do you begin?
My clients always laugh at me on this because it's like, I ask a lot of questions around their bowel movements, both on my intake form and most sessions. I'm like, how often are they? What color is it? What shape is it? What size is it? Is there any mucus in there? I'm digging down because to me, they are the clues. It's like, particularly if somebody is perimenopausal and they're not going to the toilet every day, I'm like, okay, this is where we need to start. We need good bowel movements because our hormones go through what we call 3 phases of detoxification. It's kind of obviously simplifying this, but the liver does phase 1 and 2 for our hormones, particularly estrogen. The 3rd phase is the gut. So we need to be having good daily bowel movements, because otherwise any excess estrogen, whether you're using HRT or whether it's from you still having menstrual cycles, if you don't go, some of my clients don't go to the toilet for like anything up to 5 days, if not longer. And some of them are like, I've always been like this. And I'm like, that doesn't mean it's normal. Okay. So it's about how do we make sure the body is excreting toxins, getting rid of excess hormones that the body no longer needs, because otherwise you're running the risk of not only reducing your microbiome, which then plays a role in neurotransmitters and in immune system. You potentially can have reabsorption of hormones back into the bloodstream through the gut. So you're increasing your estrogenic load, which for a lot of women is not what you want. For some of us, we do. Some of us do need a bit more estrogen. But if we're being mindful of things like breast cancer and endometriosis and fibroids are a really common symptom in menopause. You don't want more estrogen, or you don't want that estrogen to kind of sort of be going down the wrong pathways. So for me, bowel movements are so important. And often, some of these things can easily rectified. It can get a bit more complex, but I'm like, how much water are you drinking, really? So many of us, again, aren't hydrated. Hydration is the number one rule of nutrition. It's like, I would say to clients, you can last weeks without food, technically. You see them in I'm a Celebrity that's on now, or Bear Grylls The Island type things. The one thing they can't live without is water. So I'm like, get the hydration levels up. And then it would be fiber. And a lot of people then go, yeah, but if I eat fiber, it makes me bloated. It makes me, I get a lot of flatulence. Well, we have to increase it slowly. And it's using, even things like ground flax seeds or psyllium husks, or, the vegetables, you can eat, just eat more of them. Don't be something like, I'm going to go eat loads of beans and lentils and things, because it'll actually probably make it worse. So trying to keep it really simple, but it's kind of like if your microbiome is low anyway, and you just shove in loads of fiber, you haven't got the microbiome to help break that fiber down. So you will then exacerbate symptoms. So you kind of got to make these changes slowly. But I think half our problem is we want a quick fix and we want it now. And the body doesn't quite work that way. But I would say something as simple as a kiwi fruit. 1 to 2 kiwis a day can actually really help with bowel movements. Easy things like that. So I do talk a lot about gut health with my clients throughout all their sessions, not just the first one.
It's so important. I studied perimenopause and menopause through to postmenopause under Jenny Burrell, and one of her colleagues is Michelle Lyons. And what Michelle Lyons doesn't know about a bowel movement is probably not worth knowing. Yeah. So all about the bowel movement. And I mean, on the ultimately basic level, after a really good bowel movement, you feel much better. Mentally, physically, you feel lighter, more energized.
Absolutely.
So that's got to be indication in itself. And 5 days?
I know. Often my clients will message me. I can wake up in the morning and come back to like, literally like I had the best bowel movement last night. It was perfect. And I'm like, hooray, amazing. Yeah, it's so important. But I also think, there's so many factors to it as well. For example, for those of us who are going into offices or commuting or whatever, sometimes we don't want to go when we're at work. We don't want to be in another bathroom. We like the comfort of our own home, so that mucks up routine. I think the one phrase for me is always, a lot of my clients have just learned to live with it. They go, well, I've always been like this. I'm like, When I ask them, how long have you struggled with constipation? Oh, at least 10 years. And they'll have gone to a doctor and maybe just been diagnosed with IBS, or just given some laxative type sachets to get things moving. And the big thing for me is really getting clients to tune into their body and go, okay, this isn't actually normal. And then, starting to take easy steps to start resolving it, because it plays such a massive part in our hormone clearance. It's a really, really important part of it.
A lot of people don't know that you have to flush out hormones, the excess, or because they change their nature, and from estrogen to estradiol to all sorts of other different pathways, they do need to be removed. And then we replenish from within from the nutrients that we get, for example. Yes. Another thing that a lot of people put up with is PMT. Is that normal?
No. So I often explain to clients, even my clients who aren't perimenopause, whoever created us gave us this amazing body to reproduce. And bear in mind everything that goes with it, having a monthly bleed, all of those kind of things. They didn't then also go, and I'm going to give you a world of pain as well every month. I'm going to give you bloating. I'm going to give you sore boobs, cramping, backache, moods, irritability, sugar cravings. I mean, if they did, they were pretty evil. However we came to be on this planet. So do you know what? I always remember learning that when I was at nutrition college, when one of my tutors said that, and literally you could have heard a pin drop in the room, because nobody had ever considered it. Because when we're taught as children, or I remember my mum having a book to talk to me about kind of the female reproductive system and, obviously preventing, pregnancies and periods, and this was all going to happen. And I remember part of that being around, you might feel some discomfort and there may be some other symptoms that come with your period each month. We are educated as teenagers, as kids at puberty, that PMT is normal. It's what's to be expected. Just take a Nurofen or ibuprofen, you'll be okay. So for me, I'm like, PMT is not normal. And certainly some of the extremes. So I work with a lot of clients with PMDD, which is the even more extreme form of PMT. And, it's all about hormone balance. It's all about understanding, right, what are those hormones doing? What ratios are they in? Are they going down the right pathways? How are they working with each other? And I think even now, when women are starting to experience perimenopause, menopause symptoms, like I was saying earlier, I've worked hard on my hormones because I was on the pill for so long and knew the symptoms. So that I think that's why I'm at the moment, touch wood, breezing through perimenopause. But the women I see who are now menopausal and considering HRT or on HRT, I will always ask them and say, what were your periods like before? And if they start going, I had all of these symptoms, I'm like, okay, this is making sense. I think if you struggle with PMT, you are probably more, I haven't got any research or stats on this other than my own clients, but I suspect if you struggle with PMT, you are more likely to struggle with menopause as well.
Is there anything that somebody listening to this now could do today, as well as hydrate, obviously every day, that would help or begin to help with PMDD, certainly, and PMT? Maybe even there are some younger girls listening and they think, well, yes, I have cramps, but like you said, I'd just take a Nurofen or some kind of painkiller or have a hot water bottle. So how could we help the youngest then move through their lives pain-free?
Yeah. For me, obviously, I'm always going to say diet is key. We're all eating too much of the wrong foods because we're all tired, we're all stressed, we haven't got time to cook, we're grabbing food on the go. So that naturally is increasing our sugar load. Even though, some of my clients go, I eat really quite well. And then I see the food and I'm like, there's just sugar at each point. And I think some of the convenience food that we think are healthy aren't as healthy as they probably could be or should be. So I'm always like, just get back to whole foods as best you can. Anything that comes in a fancy packet, anything that kind of promises the earth and, still tastes great. For me, a lot of these kind of plant-based products, I just look at the ingredients and think, oh my goodness, these are just horrific. There's no nutritional value. They might shout, oh, I've got loads of protein, but they haven't really got any other nutritional value in them at all. So I'm like, just get back to the whole foods, lots of fruit and vegetables, water.
Even the ones that say they have a load of protein in, when you actually look at their nutritional content, sometimes it's 6 grams. And you're like, hang on a minute, that's not a lot of protein. In my opinion, you need to be around the 20-ish, 25 grams per meal. Yeah. Of protein to make it count. But being a protein bar that has 4 grams of protein and it's processed, there's an awful lot of that around. So whole foods.
Yeah, I think it's looking at the protein, but then also look at the sugar content. Just because it's high in protein doesn't mean it's not high in sugar. I think the other side of balancing hormones is stress. Cortisol plays a huge role in both our hormone levels and also our gut health. So every time we get stressed, every time, if we wake up in the morning, we're a bit anxious or go, oh, I've got loads to do today. That instant reaction, part of our natural fight and flight response is to move blood flow away from the gut. If that's happening every day, blood flow moves away from the gut. You're not going to get good bowel movements. Your microbiome's not going to be very happy. So we have to find ways in our day to also manage our stress levels, even if it's 10 minutes a day. And a lot of my clients are like, oh, I haven't really got time. I'm like, well, how much time do you spend scrolling on social media? What if you just set your alarm clock 5 minutes earlier and did 5 minutes of breath work before you even launched into the day? Suddenly it becomes doable. So I think managing that stress in whatever way works for you, I think we have to learn to be selfish and say, I need 10 minutes for me personally, not spending time with friends and family who I love and adore, or my kids, for me, that I just zone out, just have that headspace. So we hear loads about stress, but that plays a massive, massive part in our hormone balance.
Move yourself a little bit further up the priority list for 5 minutes and then 10 minutes a day. It is possible. It is possible.
It is possible
to find 10 minutes a day. Nicola, where can people find you apart from on a beach in Cyprus? How can people find you?
So they can head to my website, urbanwellness.co.uk, or find me on Instagram or Facebook at Urban Wellness UK. Anybody wants to just DM me or find out more, there's sort of all the avenues to get in contact through there.
And any parting pearls of wisdom?
For me, it would be start paying attention. And by that, I mean, start tracking whether it's your gut symptoms, start tracking your periods if you're still having them. Start paying attention and don't just look for the quick fix on it and go, oh, I'm bloated, I'll go and take a certain medication. Think about what are the symptoms? And with that, overlay that with, right, how am I eating? How am I looking after myself? Really prioritize that. I know a lot of clients are like, oh, it sounds easier said than done. It's like, it is actually. Just go back to the basics. Start paying attention to your body, listen to the symptoms, get hydrated, start focusing on the whole foods within your diet.
Thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you professionally.
Yes, I know. It's been fantastic. Thank you. I've really enjoyed it.
I will leave all the details of where to find Nicola, as usual, in the show notes. Follow us on the podcast app of your choice, and please do leave a review and click subscribe, as it makes all the difference to keeping us going. Sign up to the newsletter to stay up to date with the new episodes and a few extras as well. Simply go to the website, realmenopausetalk.com, scroll down and click subscribe. If you're listening at the time of release, then I wish you all a very happy, peaceful, exciting and fulfilling 2023. I thank you all for listening and being part of the Real Menopause Talk community. Happy New Year! Thank you for listening, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.